Otherworldly, and this week our guest is Laska Koudelka, who is going to be talking about Slavic demons. But why don't you can you start with what the difference is between? Because I'm really going to try and get you to come back and cover the other aspects of it.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm gonna stop my own video because my connection is not that good, and I also want to invite everybody to just join the chat because most of you guys do not speak Slavic languages, and when I'm gonna use the terms or the names of the demons of the spirits, I'm gonna type them out so that there's no confusion. And first thing first, here's the handout for the class. It is on my Google Doc, and anybody can access it. And as my accent and my name suggests, I'm originally from Russia. My family immigrated when I was 14. So I have some just cultural knowledge of that, but I also studied, I've also studied it in I was always interested in cultures and mythologies. My major in college one of my majors was in classics and classical history. So I do have some academic background, and I also studied, as a minor, I studied Russian studies. So, well, let's first dive into what's the difference is between folk demonology and other things. Well, when people think about Russian or Slavic tales, they think about, say, Baba Yaga or Kachay the Deathless, and that is more under the umbrella of fairy tales. And those were things that people passed down, but there was not an expectation of that it's gonna be a real thing that you would encounter in real life. Then there are legends, called Bylini. And that is literally the things that were, and from there you do have of old heroes with a lot of magic in that. So that is also not something people would expect to deal with in their regular lives. But the folk demonology, that is a deep-held beliefs of powerful supernatural beings that are just live alongside with you, that are they're not sanctioned by the official religion, but they survived the long history of church trying to stamp them out. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. Is the can everybody hear me right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's a couple of books that most of you are very familiar. One of them most of you are very familiar with, the House at Midnight by W.F. Ryan. You'll see it in my bibliography. That's a very dense text, and it's a survey of magic and divination in Russia, and it does include as a supplement of our beliefs in neighboring Slavic beliefs, because you have to kind of fill some of the holes in the information that we have. Then there's Russian Folk Belief by Ivanits Linda, and it's a wonderful book where first half of the book is her research, and the second half of the book are the collection of tales that were interviews with the peasants from mostly from collected in 19th century Russia, and they about things that that they would encounter in say in the wild, things like a lot of you know about Rusalki, which we'll talk about later, but it's a ethnographic study and it's very good. Then there's a couple of SCA blogs which are wonderful. One by Lucetta di Cosima, and on the top and on the bottom of a handout. And there's two wonderful handouts, very well researched, one on a Russian folk demonology and another on pagan beliefs in ancient Russia. And then there's a wonderful resource by Ivan known as John Beebe, and he has a ginormous post about pagan elements in decorative art of medieval Rus, and they're just chock full of wonderful information there, and you can see some of the pictures. I tried to include a lot of pictures in the handout, so it would give people like a little bit most of the spirits we'll talk about today don't have real don't have a lot of real images of. There's a lot of like modern paintings or 19th century paintings, but there's no prior, nothing much from prior to that. And then there's I don't want to turn this class into a laundry list of, because there's just so many of those. Oh, cat. Sorry, I got my cats got chasing each other over my keyboard.
Didn't mute you, did he?
Some of us, so. I'm sorry?
I was just worried he might have muted you. So.
No, I'm here. Okay, so here, and they forwarded my document. Okay, back to the beginning. So I don't want to overwhelm everybody with a laundry list of just, it would take forever to just list all the creatures and critters and spirits. So there's a very good thorough list of Slavic creatures with short depictions, and then with links to extended articles on Mythos Wiki. And it's also like both on the top of a handout and on the bottom in bibliography. So, one of the problems we have is that Slavic people themselves relied on oral tradition for their legends and stories. And when Christianity introduced writing, the priests, monks, worldly leaders, they were not interested in preserving beliefs. They were interested in eradicating pagan beliefs. So our knowledge is very fragmented. We have to rely on things like linguistics, archaeology, comparative religion, surviving relics, legends, costumes, festivals, sayings, traditional embroidery and carvings. So the written sources themselves just often provide names of the deities, and there's a lot of penance assessment lists that priests would have. If you are if you're worshiping that deity, you have 3 years of feasting and obeisance making, things like that. Or we have very biased accounts of how Slavs behaved on like what kind of holidays were held. And so by the time that there was real interest in collecting actual stories in the 19th century, a, a lot of the people in Ivanit's book, we see a lot of the stories are told as if the people would say, oh, it used to happen here, but very long time ago. Oh, it used to happen here, but now it's somewhere very far away. So let me give you a little bit of historical context. They, in eastern part, and for Eastern Slavs, it was when Vladimir Sviatoslavovich consolidated power of Kiev Duchy over a large swath of land in 988 CE. He conducted a mass baptism to convert population to Christianity, to consolidate the control with a state-sanctioned unified religion, and to integrate into a greater political landscape of Byzantine Empire and the East and Western Europe. And that started the process of suppression of pagan beliefs among Eastern Slavs. And the last holdout of ancestral worship were in the West, the Palabian Slavs, and that's a Western Slavic tribe who occupied the area that is now Eastern Germany. And they were conquered during Northern Crusades, and when the final straw was when Arcona, their capital, was in 1168, was seized by Danes under King Valdemar and Bishop Absaladon, and the invading forces just destroyed all the cult sites and idols, and force converted population to Christianity. Now, there's a couple of very interesting pitfalls in studying Slavic pagan religion and beliefs. And there's one hurdle is that scholarship hit a major roadblock in most of the 20th century for political reasons, because the countries in Soviet bloc were hindered by their need to adhere to Communist Party doctrines of mandatory atheism, militant atheism, really. And the rest of the world just didn't have access to the most of the primary sources. And then after the fall of Soviet Union, at first there was very little funding to do serious studies. And then now there's such a rise of nationalistic authoritarian regimes that a new sort of pressure is put on scholars to elevate the history and heritage in many of the countries. So, for example, in Russia, the first Russian Empire was in the business of elevating its own agenda in 19th century, and then with the Russophile movement, and then same in Soviet Union, and now in modern day Russian civilization. So studies are too often tied to propaganda and self-aggrandizement. another difficulty is that literary sources from prior to conversion to Christianity, there's just so many mistakes in interpretations, and then later downright forgeries. So first records of Slavic deities and pseudo-deities appear as early as Middle Ages, mainly in Latin Christian texts, which are kind of like misunderstandings. Say a name of a festival, such as Kupalo, is thought to be a name of a deity that is celebrated that day. And Kupalo got associated with St. John the Baptist, and summer solstice celebrations were associated with him. And then on 18th and 19th century, the interest in the past arose, but it led to a lot of very unscrupulous opportunists. And some of them were just shoddy scholarships trying to write books and filling the blanks with in the knowledge of classical mythology, like trying to draw parallels to classical mythology and like creating deities which just didn't exist. There's no record of them, but they would take a name for spring, Vesna, and just say, "Oh, Vergata has to be goddess of the spring, and I'll call her Vesna." And then there's some like outright forgeries made. There's in a handout, there's a picture of ritual idols depicting alleged Slavic deities decorated with alleged Slavic runes, but Slavs didn't really have runes. And then there's another very interesting forgery called the Book of Veils, and that's it is a set of wooden planks, and they're said to very conveniently be lost during 1941, which is an easy thing to say because of so many things were lost as Nazis invaded Eastern countries. So there's only supposed copies that remain, but it is absolute mess according to linguistic analysis. It's as somebody grabbed a whole bunch of words from every Slavic language and just tacked on endings, suffixes, and prefixes to make it look like it's written in Old Slavonic, and the grammars does not adhere to either Old Slavonic or is not even internally consistent. So there's a wide agreement among scholars that it is a complete fake. But unfortunately, a lot of politicians don't agree to that. And in some countries, it's still on a school curriculum for children because it's, oh, look at the great remnant of Slavic writing. So before the rigorous academic standards, early scholars did invent a lot of goddesses, from Vesna to there's possibly the goddess of love, Lelia, that might have been just based on Kupala is an actual celebration that seems to be rooted in antiquity, that with a bonfire, jumping over bonfires and dancing at night during the shortest night of the year. But Kupala itself is not a deity. Answering question from a myth. Who doesn't what?
Dance around bonfires on midsummer.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. It is always fun to have bonfires in midsummer. So Lelia, of the reason why that goddess of love was reconstructed is because it's a very common refrain during wedding songs. So it's assumed that Lelia is goddess of love. A current scholarship might indicate she actually existed, but that's one of those things which is heavily debated. And also Kalida, speaking of Kupala's midsummer, Kalida is a celebration of winter solstice, but again, it's a celebration, not a god. And of the probably most famous example, thanks to probably Neil Gaiman, is Belobog, and it was created as a dual opposite to Chernobog. Chernobog, let me type that out. Chernobog is literally translated as black god, and so Belobog was kind of created for the sake of duality. So most scholarship analysis, there's a really good paper in that handout about it. Wikipedia has a wonderful list of Slavic suited deities. I included that. I kind of always check whatever I read against it, and if too many of those pop up, from an article in a modern article, I would really look at it with suspicion. So there's also Russian neo-pagan movements, and they do accept a lot of that shoddy scholarship and forgeries like Book of Wells as their religious text. Yeah, very, very true, Fever. And the Slavic native faith, it's commonly known as Radnaverye, and so it's neo-pagans, and I'm very wary of them because most of them hold very reactionary beliefs. They're very tied to nativism, of nationalism, of populism, and they have some of the. A lot of them are very vocal of their regressive beliefs and beliefs in their ethnic superiority, the non-miscegenation. They see ethnic minorities as a cause of all the problems in their countries, anti-immigrant sentiments. So I steer very clear from them as I can. So it's Rodna. Rod means we'll come across it a little later, but Rod means kin or ancestor, that root, and Vera means faith. Okay, so let's get a little bit into Slavic cosmology, and that because of the top-down conversion was performed, people didn't convert sincerely, and there was a lot of resistance to accept Christianity sincerely and fully, and that led to a religious syncretism movement which persists to this day. It is in Russian called Dvoyeverye, means dual faith or two faith. Dvo means dva, vera means faith, and it just people do official religion would be practiced outside the home, and then inside the home, people would just persist with the traditional daily costumes and that like ancestors have had for generations. So there's a couple of ways the view was divided into 3 layers. There's heaven above, there's underworld, and there's world of human between. But there's also another division, and it was a parallel vision, and in our world called Sviet, meaning light world, or Mir, meaning world of peace, and our world, Tot Sviet, that world, or Zagrobny Mir, the world behind the coffin. And Tot Sviet is the other world, and world behind the coffins, Zagrobny. And would also be another way to describe it would be Yak, which is being. Yak. And Nav or Neyev. The little apostrophe means that the word is has a soft sound, not nav but nav. So because of Christian because of partially because of the Christian influence, a lot of spirits would be described as unclean forces. Nechiste sila, unclean, nechiste, and the so let's see what's next. We're already almost halfway through, so I'm gonna skip a little bit. So, but over centuries, the belief persisted throughout and just driven from public space into domestic space. That's why we often observe them in folk art, traditional carvings and embroidery, and embroidery becomes very, very stylized over time. There's a couple of really nice examples, progressive examples of that in the handout if you want to take a look. So this so there's so we can go in a little bit into the kind of spirits and kind of beings the Slavic folks believed in. And they can be roughly divided into a couple of categories. So first, there's the main spirits, the spirits of the homestead, and they're tied to a specific. Each one is tied to a specific building and specific task that happens in a homestead. Then there's topographical spirits, and those are tied to a very specific location. There's spirits of a field, spirits of the forest, spirit of a lake, etc. Then there's spirits not tied to a territory, and there are
I think we lost Laska herself.
Well, I hope she gets back.
Yes.
And maybe on a better stream. Because this is really good. She's getting to the good stuff.
So far, getting to the stuff I came in for.
Yeah. House spirits. Well, I've got Bathhouse at Midnight, but I don't know that I have.
There she is.
Yay, she's back.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, she made it
Welcome
back.
back.
Yay.
Don't worry, we'll let you keep talking.
Sorry about that. Okay. So, where did I rough? Where the
You're about to get into the you'd said they're the home spirits, the spirits of territory, and spirits who aren't attached to territory.
a spirit's not attached to territory from the just ideas. Not necessarily, but often not. And then there's spirits which either used to be humans or humans with some sort of magical abilities. So a very interesting. I really like the story about the why the spirits are kind of distributed so, and that's a great illustration of the religious syncretism between Christianity and local beliefs. So it was said that after the war in heaven, when the fallen angels fell to earth, wherever they landed, they get stuck and establish their own domain. But the ones which landed closer to the humans through a long period of cohabitation and the fact that humans would appease them and offer them sacrifices and be kind to them, the spirits would become kind of domesticated and more benevolent, and the farther away from the household they are, the more malevolent the spirits would be. So let's get into a couple of specific specific ones. The most important, the spirits of a household, the most important one would probably be the Domovoi. And dom means house, and avoy kind of just means of, being of the house. And the Domovoi is a very possible remainder of ancestral cult. He appears as an old man and often looks like a deceased family patriarch. Or there's some stories that head of a household was off traveling somewhere and then would appear in a house and people would interact with him, and then he would disappear, and then the news would come that the person who was traveling is dead. So he was seen as an omen of death, but he's really treated more as a family member than as a demon. It is really impossible to expel them from a household. And when a family moves, they set out on this ornate box and ask Domovoi very kindly to come along. It's something my family still practices. And if you don't treat your Domovoi well, you can lose him, and losing him would lead to loss of luck and prosperity. He doesn't like poorly kept household or households where people yell at each other a lot, so he likes harmony. And if he's angry, he can be appeased by leaving out porridge and by putting the old bashed shoes on the fence posts. He enjoys those. And he also oversees livestock, especially horses. And if you purchase a new horse and he doesn't like it, he makes a lot of fuss and rattle, and the family has to sell that horse and buy a different one. And if he does accept the horse, he will help take care of it and braid its mane. He often has a wife, which is either Domovija, with female version of it, or Kikimora. And Kikimora, she's somewhat more malevolent. She can be very, very big, and she will mess spinning and weaving and all sorts of fiber arts projects, especially if you leave them out at night and don't put them away properly. And sometimes you can hear her little children crying, and if you toss a blanket over them, she will ransom them by giving you cloth. And she can help predict future. I haven't had a chance to look into how. I knew Chipikan would be interested in that, but and a lot of you, but I would have to look more into that. And then, if she misbehaves too much, she can be subdued with stones with holes in them, the fairy stones, and with hawthorn branches. And then there's a whole list of spirits of different various barns. You can, looking at the time, you can just look them up on the handout, because they're just kind of named after each name of a different type of barn. And the one which I'm sure a lot of you are very interested in is Bylini and Bylini. And those are the spirits of a bathhouse, and those are the most dangerous ones. Because the bathhouse it is the places were placed and no crosses on the walls. So and it's a place where you take off your unclean activity. Night, he might bathe you to death by drowning you, by heat exhaustion, or by flaying you alive. You all know the Russian bathhouses where with the birch for slapping you, which is actually a really nice massage if you do it right. But it's also a place to do magic at midnight if you do it correctly, if you ask permission, if you bring gifts. So it is very dangerous to bathe alone, and there's a lot of prohibitions on exactly when bathing is allowed. Bathing is not allowed on church holidays. Between Christmas and Epiphany, bathing is not allowed. Bylini requires the most appeasement of all the homestead spirits. You have to leave him soap and some hot water whenever done bathing, and thank him before taking a bath. You have to ask for permission to bathe. So that is the household spirits. Now some topographical spirits. There's Poludnitza. And Poludnitza is the half. Come on, cats. Poludnitza is the. She wants to teach the lesson ahead along with me. Poludnitza is or Mezhevik, and that's spirit of the fields. At midnight and at noon, he drives in a 3-horse carriage along the field dividers over roads along the side of the field, and if people are sleeping there, he crushes them. He also is responsible for good harvest. So, you appease him with a rooster, eggs, and with leaving olive grain in the field. In every way he can stroke. Then there's Poludnitza. And Poludnitza literally means of the noon, of the midday. Pol is half a day Denny's day, and she's a midday spirit. She enforces a taboo of not taking midday rest. And if you cut the grain at noon or walk through a field, she will break your neck or tickle you. She can distract you by telling her. And then there is spirit of a forest called Leshiy or Lesnik or Lesavik. And he can appear as large as a tree or as small as a blade of grass, or just as a cross-eyed, green-eyed, disheveled man. And he can be identified that his fastenings are on the reverse sides of his clothes, and he might not wear a belt, which is belt is one of the protective items. You don't even sleep without belts. Belts are super important for for all sorts of evil spirits not getting to you. And he also may cast no shadow. And his hair and his beard might be made of grass or vines. He's a trickster spirit who will try to make you lost. And if you confuse him by turning your clothes inside out and putting on backwards, that's one way of getting rid of him. He punishes those who take too much from a forest, those who cut too many trees, those who hunt too many animals, or those are careless with fires. Even to this day, like I was saying earlier, there's proverbs which are from which we know how important certain deities were, and the curses "go to Leshiy" or "may the Leshiy take you" are still in regular use. Now, the most important power in the forest is the bear, and bear's ability to walk, that it ate all the food that humans could eat, was taken as a very human-related characteristic, and a hibernation from fall to spring took a symbolic meaning. So just uttering the bear's name was considered disrespectful and a very bad luck. So there were a lot of euphemisms that were used to the point of losing original Proto-European root word. And some names for the bear are himself, the master, the furry one, the club-footed, the master of honey. And the master of honey, Medvedь, is what as bears are called today in Russian. The only remnant of the original root for bear from Proto-European remained in the word berloga, which is bear's lair or burrow. Literally bear's cave. And then there's Vodinoi. And Vodinoi is the spirit of water. Anybody of water would have one. Each river, pond, lake. And he's a very, very malevolent spirit. He can shapeshift into duck, fish, or appear as the man covered in seaweed or a drowned corpse, and he would drown humans. And he needs a lot of offerings to keep him satisfied. So there's recordings to a lot of horse sacrifices, like that they would drown a horse for Vodinoi. Then there's a lot of people know about Rusalki, but Rusalki don't look like what mermaids like. Are images of half women, fish the word area. And they are the religious synchronism story, because Faraonki are Faraonki are after Pharaoh's people turned into fish after they drowned after the Red Sea parting, and they would remain as fish hybrids until Judgment Day. So they often would surround boats, accost the sailors, and would ask them when the judging day is, and you trick them by saying, "Oh, it's tomorrow. Oh, it's day after." And then there's, of course, Rusalki, and those are water spirit maidens, and they are very beautiful, sometimes described as winged. They're always come in a big crowd, swinging from branches, combing their hair with fish combs, and they are either spirits of suicide, girls who committed suicide, girls who died between betrothal and the marriage, or unbaptized babies. And they seduce men a lot. They can drown you and tickle you to death. And they also like to steal laundry, so it's not advisable to go to the stream doing laundry alone. That is more southern version of Rusalki. Were beautiful, but the north.
We've lost her again.
She's fascinating. It's just darn.
She is.
And I'm really appreciating the writing on the board, as it were.
Yes, the handout is very helpful because it's more detail about what she's actually telling us.
Yeah, and I am so going to save this chat this time.
Yep. So
And she's back. We hope.
There we are.
Sorry about that. Well, let's
It happened.
let's hope that last 10 minutes we got to the sovereign, or rather Eastern sovereign Slavic, beautiful women, and the northern idea of Rusalki, that they're ugly and breasts, and they kill children and pregnant them with their iron breasts. They're so there's a couple of really interesting illustrations I had on Rusalki celebration, and Rusalki in beliefs Rusalki in the western slopes, I believe in Vila, or Samavila or Samadiva, and that's who people who got popularized by Harry Potter books, the part of Vila from the from a Goblet of Fire book and on, and they also occupy some similar place, that they're girls who incurred the curse of God, who led frivolous lives, a girl who died unbaptized, souls of brides who died after betrothal, and they typically are very good to those who were good to them during their lifetime, but they are going to be malicious to those who wrong them. And there's 3 types of vila. There's cloud, forest, and water, and their power lies in their hair. And depending on the legend, she either would die if a single hair is lost. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that girl in Harry Potter killed her grandmother to make herself a wand. Or they can be bound to a human by cutting, if a human catches or cuts her hair off. And they can also be turned into birds, and if the plumage is stolen, stag would be much like Selkie. And in tales and legends, she can become kind of sister protector to the hero or become his wife. But if a hero boasts about her magical lineage, she will leave. But she's a good mother. She will keep checking on her children and protect them. And then there are some really interesting to some of the spirits who are not tied to a place. And there's Rozhdinitsi, who have a lot of different names, but Rod means kin, and it's basically women giving birth. And in the northern Slavs, the Rozhdinitsi were tied to deer cult, and we can see in a lot of traditional embroidery, it is usually two women who are giving birth. Often they have antlers, and a lot of times they're on either side of tree of life. We have a lot of representations of tree of life, but no stories about tree of life per se. I remember Chipikan was interested in that. So in the Southern Slavs, the Rozhdinitsi are a lot more akin to the free fates. There are three of them, sometimes 9, because there's also multiple names for them. So sometimes they split into those 3 categories, and then there's again 3 of each in those categories. So 3 is a very very powerful magic number. And Rozhdinitsi will determine the fate of a baby, and after on the 3rd night after the baby is born, parents have to set out a lot of gifts like bread, cheese, honey, gold and silver if that's to be had, wine and basil, and the mother has to sit the vigil for a whole night. And 3 Rozhdinitsi would appear, and one of them is in charge of when baby's going to die. One of them is in charge of the misfortunes and illnesses the baby will face. And the last one is in charge of the happiness and prosperity in marriage. And they're going to negotiate it out. And of course, the better bribe them. Even today, there's a proverb about people who constantly having bad luck. It says he or she was not nicely taken care of on that 3rd night. And the baby would be has to be dressed in 3 layers and has to have something on of their father for protection. And Chipikan was asking about Uzud, and that's another spirit connecting to the baby's destiny of fate. There's 2 different stories about Uzud based on where in Slavic mythology you are. So it's either Uzud appears right after Rozhdinitsi and then writes down what Rozhdinitsi decided and seals the fate. So he doesn't make an independent decision. Or Uzud lives far away, first night in the fancy castle, and at midnight casts out gold to determine the fates of those born that day. Next day, he's in a regular house and casts silver, and then more and more until he's in a shack and just has some copper groats, and he does those, and then the cycle begins again. So it's a way to determine the fates of the babies born. And then there's also a lot of different names for a lot of and a lot of different Slavic cultures of the personification of luck. And then for bad fortune, there's bida, and bida means misery. Then there's licha, and it's even a worse luck. It's like chaotic bad luck. And even still, there's a saying, "Don't wake up licha while it sleeps." And then there's chuma, which is illness and especially Black Death. And then there's spirits called milostinцы. And milostini, they are the root word. The word for milostini means the merciful ones, but it's one of those euphemistic names because you want to avoid the plague that they bring. And to appease them, when, say, a plague is going around, the villagers would light fires on the crossroads. They could share food and drink with them, and even sing before that fire when illnesses is ravaging the country. There's depictions of devils and demons, and let's just the last few minutes. So there's some humans with connection to supernatural, and say like hunters and millers, because they have to interact with Leshiy and Domovoi respectively. They have to go into a forest and live on the river, and have to give a lot of appeasement to those so they're viewed as having some magical powers. And then there's Koldun, which is a sorcerer, and Vedma, which is a witch. And Vedma comes from Ved, which means wisdom or knowing, so that's a wise woman basically. And the beliefs they both have access. They're both humans. They have access to a lot of knowledge. They can be consulted, but can also be they have to be revered. Like Koldun has to be invited to weddings, so if there's no bad luck. Vedma has to be given. Vedma can be consulted for foretelling the future. And then there's the last one I'm gonna do is Vurdalak or Oboroting, and that's a werewolf, and that's a werewolf in Western. And then to become werewolf is to wear a skin of a tanning it, or if a pregnant woman dies and the wolf passes over her body. And they can cause eclipses by devouring sun and moon and spitting it out later. They turn into wolves every night or at will at night. And they can temporarily turn into human by touching anything made of silver or gold, but they can be killed by beheading with the weapons made from the same material. And it's 9 o'clock and it's a lot. And
Can we have a few questions?
Yeah, let's see if we do that. And again, there's a very extensive bibliography for looking up like a specific spiritual if you're interested in something specific, ask me. I'll add my contact information and
Well, I would
say
have
that-
questions, but too many questions. I'm not even going to try. I wouldn't
I
even know
will
where
point
to
out, I
start.
was scanning.
it is better now.
I mean, we have the handout with the links, and I have the chat, which I'm going to save, so I have all the spellings of all the ones you listed.
Yeah, that's
But
Mhm.
now, the only question I have is, if you had enough time to tell us everything you would like to talk about, how many days would we be here? I mean, I know Typicon said that you have so much you could say.
definitely. I mean, definitely. It's not very consistent. It's like there's Vila, there's a Serbian legend that survives from Middle Ages about the Prince Marko and the Vila, and that can be told. There's a lot of the tales do of a lot of tales of old heroes do have supernatural elements to them, and you can tell those. You can
Well, I think
just-
we need to
I just
invite
wanted to give you
Laska.
guys some tools to go
Right.
and where you can go and look into those
Right.
things, and you caveats of where there's going to be a lot of bad information.
Right. But I still, and he could work on those tools and just spend ages chasing that stuff, which is excellent. I still think Chipicon ought to invite you back for another presentation. Because I bet you
Yeah.
could find a few things to tell us, even beyond what you gave us tonight.
Sure, I was thinking of doing one on specifically fairy tales because everybody is always very interested and
Well, yeah,
more
because you specified
about
tonight that
Baba Yaga and
you were talking about the groups, and a lot of what we think of as mythology is really fairy tales. So having stuck to the mythology, maybe if one on the Slavic fairy tales would be good.
yeah, I have a class about that, and I can come back later and do a class on that.
we will work on that.
Yeah,
Chipicon,
You
I
want
found
to tell
you-
people who there are new people here tonight, so I'm going to say down at the bottom of the chat there are 3 dots, and if you click on those, there's a place where you can save the chat, and then where she gave us all the right spelling, which is really useful.
And I'll give the link again for the handout.
Did lots of cool pictures in that. Yeah.
Yes, and if because of the audio problems, if you had any issues understanding Laska, you might find the information in the handout.
yes.
Yeah, I would like an opportunity. Shows my twist, but I'd love to have it's a little bit of time to trash talk the people who are misrepresenting the accurate versions, especially the neo-pagans who are saying, I don't care if it's not authentic, it's what we want to do, isn't it? But
and another bonfire.
I understand, but there's a lot. Stay away from the ones and currently in prominence in Europe because they are really, really toxic.
Yeah. And the
So
other
much
thing
anti-Semitism, so much. Yeah.
I'd like to start a fire by pointing out that the Witcher series, both the books and the TV series, well, the books, of course, are deeply rooted in Slavic something or other. And I was wondering, I saw names that looked vaguely familiar, and it was almost like, well, they took the names, did they take? I would love to hear more about how accurate some of that is. Is the context right? And
go to they actually do mention everything isn't mature, but they do mention it. It is on the handout, on the first page, the the fandom.com wiki, all the stuff Slavic creatures,
Mhm.
first page of a handout, and in the bibliography. It is a very exhaustive list of short descriptions, but then and a lot of pictures. But then you can click through to specific ones, and they do.
Oh, well, poot.
Oh
Again,
dear.
sigh.
The Witcher series is can you hear me?
I can hear you. The
Okay.
Witcher
Yeah.
series?
Yeah, the Witcher series is actually based more in Polish folklore, which is
Yeah.
what I grew up in.
Ah,
And I don't know, Polish folklore seems to be darker than everything else, and mostly meant to scare your children and keep them inside.
no, that makes sense because what I've been hearing about comparisons between the TV representation and the books is that the books were a lot darker.
Oh,
And
absolutely they are.
I haven't read them all. I've been getting context. I guess I slipped a bit on forgetting about the fact that it was written in Polish, but then, like I say, my knowledge of this is, I am Slovak, so I am rooted in the area, but I see this. I stand at one spot and I look around and I see the same thing in slightly different versions the farther I look. So you go from, say, Slovakia to Poland, and it's different, but it's still rooted.
Oh yes, most definitely. There's going to be a lot of regional variations in the tales and traditions. That's why when I spelled things out phonetically, there's a lot of versions of a spelling.
Mhm.
Just based on the country, and you have to transliterate it, most of them from Cyrillic into English, so that adds another layer of
Yeah.
confusion. And
Typicon has a good point in chat there. Are there any spirit entities who could be appeased for a better internet connection?
well, yeah, if we believe into one hard enough, we definitely can create one.
We could at this point, with so many of us coming on and having so Chipicons have been through connection hell more times than I can count, and now you're struggling with your audio, and and group belief. Obviously this would be a modern concept, so we would have to get together and in our hearts formulate a benevolent spirit who could go out there and unclog routers and make
Well, if we
audio.
do it right, the power of Telpo will create it. And
Yeah,
What
there
is
is
this? I think when enough people believe in something, it's called aggregor, I believe.
Oh, really?
that's the Telpo. You create that by
Okay,
everybody believing in it together.
Connie, the spirit of CTCW, huh?
Laska, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is
Oh, hi,
there
Kitty.
Hi. Oh, and that's Scully. She's evil.
Yeah, hi, Scully.
Um, Is there a cognate anywhere else other than Polish for plague maidens?
Ooh.
Plague maidens. Well, the milostivые, they exist. And it's a euphemistic name, meaning merciful ones. Those are the plague maidens,
Okay.
and you call them that euphemistically. But a singular one, which appears separately, is chuma, which is literally means the plague. Hi, baby. And that is just personification of Black Death. So
Okay.
there's Black Death, and then there's goddesses of all sorts of different illnesses.
In Poland, they're Morova Dziewika?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. It is on the list in that
Oh,
wiki.
okay.
I just couldn't go through every single thing on there. It would just be me reading your laundry list at that
Gotcha.
point.
They
No,
they
no,
were
you have
some of the
some
ones
interesting.
my grandmother would terrify me with.
Aha.
Oh yeah. There's
All
a
of her
lot
stories
of
were
those
scary.
spirits too. Yeah, there's Babai who I didn't get into, and that you scare children with him, and he would abduct children or who misbehave. Leshiy was also told to abduct. Go to if a parent accidentally curses their kid if they annoy them and says go to Leshiy, the Leshiy feels free to abduct the kids, and then you have to bring a lot of offerings to get your children back.
Mm.
Oh,
And there were
That's-
the mares and the stranglers.
Yeah, there's
Yay.
yeah. There's a lot of very dark forces.
I think we ought to have Kristen and Laska do a joint presentation here. Kristen will say, but is there, yeah, and then Laska said, oh yeah, that could last an hour.
That could last many hours. We can talk about this for ages, yeah.
But
Honestly,
As
we
you
just
said
need to-
earlier, there's just so much.
it
And it's
is
so
a
different than Western mythology
Oh,
that
yeah.
you really
yeah.
have to. I didn't go into what we kind of maybe know about the gods themselves. I just focused on the spirits that persisted. But what we know about the actual Slavic deities is even a lot less, and a lot of their attributes got co-opted into saints. So
Yeah, I was kind of taken by the antiphonal nature of that conversation, with Kristen bringing something up and Laska responding. And it was neat because I see you started by saying, is there a cognate for? And I thought, cool, well, and do you have one of those, and what do you call it? And what's it like? And that starts to cover the distance and the regional differences. That would be fun too. I'm just trying to take this
yeah,
enormous.
Slavic languages. Yeah,
We do have
love it.
to stop recording and
Okay.
Yeah.
but
Eventually
we will
for this.
definitely want you to come back and make whatever offerings we can think of to keep it sounding good.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so
Laska.
much for everybody who showed up.
Oh,
And
yes.
thank you
that was
for everybody
wonderful.
who watch it
Thanks,
later on YouTube. Oh, you're welcome.
Yep. Yeah. Tell your friends that it will be on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.